Hey there, all you filthy heathens. This is Kirk, just coming back to you again. Another long layoff. It's been like 4 months. And I wanted to make sure I touch bases with you. We're about 10 days out from the presidential elections in 2024. And I just wanted to give a recap of what's been going on. Part of the reason why I haven't been doing these videos the last 4 months is because so much has been going on that it's hard to keep track of everything and really find the time to settle on one thing to talk about, or even just 2 or 3 things to talk about. It's just been so much, and it's been very difficult to kind of organize my thoughts and then get time to sit down, record a video, edit it, all that stuff. So basically what I'm gonna do today is just go over the things that have happened the last 4 months, and then give you an update on the national election and all 3, the presidency, the Senate, and the House, how they all stand right now as far as I'm concerned. Remember, we're 10 days out. There could be some more October surprises, maybe even a November surprise that comes up between now and then. So I wanted to make sure that I kind of touch bases with you all here today and let you kind of know where I think the race stands right now. So just to kind of recap and give you an idea of what's really been going on. And I think a lot of us have probably forgotten so many things that have happened over the last 4 months. And just let me recap some stuff with you. So since I last did a video, like a legit video, I did one where I complained about McFlurries. So there's that. But the main thing that I want to go over, just the sheer number of just things that would be just crazy things to happen during a presidential election year. And there's so many things that have happened. So number one, we had the Donald Trump Joe Biden debate back at the end of June. That was just crazy. That should have just effectively ended the whole presidential race. It should have been the end of it. But Joe Biden goes out and just has a horrible performance in that debate. So remember, 4 months ago, Joe Biden was running for president. He is not anymore. And there's a few reasons why. Number one was that debate. That debate kind of solidified. We know he's just not with it, and he cannot be president for the next four years. It just can't happen. But then, just I believe it's 2 weeks after that debate, that disastrous debate, Donald Trump gets shot. So a lot of people have just forgotten about that. Like the media definitely has. Just forgot. Donald Trump got shot back in July. And you still have some crazy psychos out there who are saying, oh, it was staged. Like, you don't stage being shot in the head. Okay, so there's that. So then, within a week, Joe Biden drops out of the race. So it's, I think probably a week later, Joe Biden drops out of the race. And that by itself should be like, holy crap, the whole party's in disarray. Yet somehow, the media comes out, Kamala Harris is anointed the nominee. And she goes from being the most disliked vice president since they started taking polls on vice presidential approval. I mean, she was, I believe certain polls showed her as less liked, like she had a lower approval rating than Dick Cheney had right after Dick Cheney shot a guy in the face. So, Kamala Harris gets installed, and then all of a sudden has this huge media honeymoon where she gets no negative press. She does no press and just gets anointed the Democrat nominee. So she has a huge jump in the polls. Really looks like she's like gonna win this thing for a solid month and a half or 2 months because of that. During that time again, I believe I might have this out of order, but there's a second attempt to assassinate Trump, which is again really weird. But again, the media has just, memory hold. They just aren't talking about it. Like, that's usually a big deal when a former president gets shot, or a political candidate gets shot. But nope. I mean, we still talk about Bobby Kennedy being shot. We still talk about Reagan getting shot. But nope, we're not talking about Donald Trump getting shot. So then you have the Trump-Kamala debate. And I thought Kamala actually did pretty well considering the low bar that was set for her, but she actually did pretty well. The problem with that debate, and I think it's why she was asking for another debate right off the bat, is that I think she knew that the main things that were going to come out of that is that the moderators were obviously biased towards her. They when they fact checked, they only fact checked Trump, and then they lied about all of their fact checks. Then Kamala didn't get any fact checks, and there were at least 3 times where she just blatantly lied. She came back with the whole verifying people hoax that's been debunked several times, even by left-wing fact checkers like Snopes. So that's why she wanted another debate. But Trump was like, no, voting's already started in some states. We're not doing another debate. And you turned down 3 debates that I offered you already. So no, we're not doing another one. You're the one that said you wanted one debate. That's what you're getting. So then a few weeks later, we got the debate where the vice presidential debate between J.D. Vance and Tim Walz. And then, Walz just shit the bed. So, I mean, the main thing that came out of that, there was 2 things. There was a meme of J.D. Vance doing like what's the guy from The Office, where he just kind of like looks at the camera like, what the hell are you talking about? And Tim Walz says that he made friends with school shooters. That's what was memorable coming out of that debate. So J.D. Vance obviously just, steamrolled him in the debate. And that actually is kind of the turning point where you saw Kamala's numbers start to come down and Trump's numbers start to go up. I think that was kind of like the inflection point, to me, the inflection point of this last 4 months in the presidential race. So you have that debate. Kamala Harris does a series of bad interviews the last few weeks because she knows that she's starting to dip in the polls. She probably has some really bad internal polling, and it's been really, really bad. So the more people hear her talk, the more people dislike her. So she's been dropping in the polls ever since. And to top it all off, I'm recording this the day after, the day after Trump went on Joe Rogan, and I listened to the 3-hour podcast, the 3-hour interview, and it's nothing I haven't heard Trump say or do or anything before, but there's a few things that kind of came out that are actually really good. Trump likes to talk about how he weaves the conversation and stuff like that, and there were some times he got tripped up on that, but other than that, I mean, he was Trump, and there was nothing that is going to turn anybody off. In fact, he probably helped himself. And as of right now, I believe that's been viewed on YouTube over 10 million times, and it's only been up for about 12 hours. So that's pretty intense. So that's where we are right now. So you can see why it's been difficult for me to put together any kind of real analysis on what's going on, because this has been a crazy 4 months when it comes to national politics here in the U.S. But what I want to do next is kind of give you an update on where I think the race is right now. So we'll start with the presidential race, because that's obviously like the big thing that's going on, especially when you have a personality like Donald Trump in the race. It's the main thing that you should be focused on, even though in our election system, really the House and the Senate are probably more important overall. But the presidency has a lot of power these days, probably more than it should. And with someone like a Donald Trump in the race, you're going to have a lot of focus on that. So that's where we're going to start. So what I do when I kind of gauge where I think the race is, I obviously start like most people. Let's get rid of all the states that we know are going to go one way or another. So that's where the map you're seeing on the screen right now, that's what we're seeing. Is the states that aren't colored in red or blue, those are the states that have the potential to be swing states, or are swing states. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and I'm going to start with the easiest ones to call and go all the way down to the ones that are most difficult for me to call. And remember, this is 10 days out. So again, I might be wrong. My official prediction, I do the morning of the election. So on November 5th, I'll have a map that I post to all of my social media pages. So follow me on YouTube, follow me on Rumble, follow me on X at Heathen Kirk on X. And then for if you are actually a personal friend of mine, someone I actually know, you'll get that on my Facebook page. You can also go to my locals, filthyheathens.locals.com, and you'll be able to see that Tuesday morning on election day. Now, to me, the easiest race to call out of all of these states, which I consider the swing states, is going to be Minnesota. Minnesota is obviously going to go to Harris. She's barely below 5-point average on the RCP average of polls. Now, granted, that last poll was a month ago, but she also has Tim Walz on there. That's probably going to switch her over. Also, Minnesota has not voted for a Republican. I mean, I'd have to go look it up. I'm not even going to waste my time looking. They're the only state that didn't vote for Ronald Reagan. Let's put it that way. So I think, yeah, so they were the only, they voted for Richard Nixon in 72, and look how that turned out. So, yeah, so it's been, I think 72 is the last time Minnesota voted for a Republican. So I don't see that going to Trump. It would be, if Minnesota did go to Trump, it would be a sign that some other blue state went to Trump too. So that's kind of crazy to me. So I'm not going to go quite there yet, and we'll say that Minnesota goes to Kamala Harris. Now, the next easiest state to call based on the polling averages is going to be Georgia. I think Georgia, I just don't see it going blue again. 2020 was just kind of a weird election. Also, even on left-wing media channels like MSNBC and CNN, they're in Atlanta, and you're showing a huge demographic switch where they're talking to especially young black men, young Hispanic men, and they're all like, no, I'm voting for Trump, or they're at least not saying positive things about Kamala Harris, which leads me to believe that even if they don't pull the lever for Trump, a lot of the demographic groups that Democrats rely on, especially in the Atlanta area in Georgia, to kind of help them, are not going to turn out. So even if they don't vote for Trump, they're probably not going to vote for Kamala Harris. So that's why Georgia to me is going Trump. Also, you have to remember, Georgia did tighten up their election laws back in 2021. We've already had an election. Everybody trusted the election. Everybody was happy with what happened. Nobody doubted anything. So that's where I'm like, okay, great. Georgia's got solid election laws this time, and we don't have to worry about any shenanigans, as far as I'm concerned. Now, the next state that I think would be kind of easy to call is going to be Arizona. Easier to call anyway. Trump has been just ahead in every poll. The Wall Street Journal had a poll a month ago that had Harris up too, but since then, it's been nothing but Trump. There's a couple of ties in there. Overall, I think this is trending Trump. Also, you have to remember that Arizona, even though they have 2 Democrat senators, a Democrat governor, this is the state that if I think shenanigans are going to happen, this is the state where I think shenanigans would happen. But I just think with immigration being the top 2 of issues nationally, I think Trump is going to be is going to carry that. So I think people are going to come out for Trump, and I think you're going to see Arizona go to Trump. That's how we're sitting right now anywhere. Remember, this is where I think we are sitting 10 days out. Now, the next state that I think will probably be fairly easy to call, the next easiest to call would be North Carolina. North Carolina is a state that it's only voted for a Democrat once since, I think, 96 maybe? I'm not sure. It's been a while. It voted for Barack Obama in 2008, but it's one of the few states that voted for Barack Obama in 2008 and then voted against him in 2012. So my only concern, the reason why this wasn't my easiest state to call, is because of one thing, the hurricane. So the hurricane did wipe out the town of Asheville, North Carolina, which is a huge Democrat kind of stronghold. It's like the only rural Democrat city in the whole country. But most of the other people that are affected, those are all heavily red areas. And so, I think that could play a part in maybe hurting Trump in the actual final vote totals, even though he's ahead in the polls. So Republicans tend to overperform the polls in North Carolina, and it is possible that a lot of independents that are in North Carolina saw the Hurricane Helene recovery efforts and saw that they were not great, and they might hold that against Kamala Harris. So so for now, I'm going to stick with North Carolina going to Trump. Trump has never lost North Carolina. He didn't lose it in 2016. He didn't lose it in 2020. So I'm going to stick with that right now. Now the next state I think is going to be this is where it starts to get kind of tricky. So these are kind of like me going off of gut instincts right now. And so we'll go with the state that is probably going to decide the election, Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is the state that I think is going to decide the election. It's going to be a huge thing. So, and you can see it. I think Trump and Harris have spent the majority of all of their campaign stops in Pennsylvania. I think they both know how important it is. But here's the thing is that I'm giving this to Trump because I've been following the efforts of Scott Pressler, and I definitely recommend you follow what he's been doing. He moved to Pennsylvania, bought a house there, and he is probably the person most responsible for Republicans winning the House in 2022 because of all of his efforts in New York and Florida, and that's really what kind of got them over the finish line back in 2022. He has spent all of his time, I think the last 3 months, completely in Pennsylvania. Republicans have flipped three or four counties from majority Democrat registered voters to majority Republican registered voters. One of those counties is just outside of Philadelphia, so it has a pretty solid population. And you're seeing in the polls that the trend is leaning towards Trump. And it just seems like everything's going that way. So I really think that Trump is going to take Pennsylvania. Now, as you can see, I already think as it sits right now, Trump is on pace to win this election. But there are still 3 states out there that are a little bit shaky, and I'll go through theirs. I'll go through them. Nevada. Nevada was way ahead for Trump a few months ago. Like when Biden was still in the race, Nevada was like a state that was going to be easy to call. And Trump has just now, recently, in the last couple weeks, taken the lead in the RCP polling, but it is still razor thin. So I'm basing my take on this completely off of the fact that I have family and friends that live in Vegas. And Vegas, if you win Vegas, you're probably going to win the state of Nevada. And I have friends and family that are talking, and that I've talked to over the summer, and they all saying the same thing: Trump's gonna win, man. Trump's gonna win. So if you have people that live in Vegas saying Trump's gonna win, I've got to go that Trump's gonna win Nevada. So we're gonna go through and say Trump wins Nevada. Again, that's just me kind of, using my gut instinct on that. So we'll see. The next state is going to be Wisconsin. Now, Wisconsin's kind of weird because it's a tie. Look at these polls since, basically since the beginning of October. Everything's a tie. Even the ones that aren't a tie, they're all within the margin of error. There's just you don't know who's going to win this. So I think it's going to be, and we'll talk about who wins the Senate race. I've got to give the advantage to other statewide elections, and the main statewide election is that U.S. Senate race. Now, the Republican candidate for that race has caught up and has really made that a race, and I believe Tammy Baldwin is the incumbent there, and she's starting to get desperate. You're starting to see some of her ads go a little bit more mudslinging, like pretty harsh on the mudslinging. And so I don't quite know. Again, it's going to be kind of rough, but I'm going to give the advantage to the incumbent party. Also, Wisconsin had a court case a couple years ago that basically kind of, for their voting procedures, that was a definite win for Democrats and how they do things. So I'm gonna, right now, I think Wisconsin goes Democrat. That's how I'm feeling it right now, is that even though the trend is all in Trump's direction, Wisconsin seems like the state where I think right now I feel like it goes Democrat. And that might change between now and Election Day on how I feel about that state. Now, the last state I'm going to talk about is Michigan. Here's the thing, is that of the blue wall states, what's called the blue wall states, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, usually how, there's a history of this. Pennsylvania tends to vote more Republican than the other two. And then Michigan tends to be more Democrat than the other two, the most Democrat of the other two, of all three anyway. So if I think Pennsylvania is going Trump and then Wisconsin goes Harris, then to me it just makes sense, even though Trump is slightly ahead right now in the RCP average, it just makes sense that Michigan would go Democrat. Now, here's the thing, is there is a large Arab and Muslim population in Michigan, and they are not happy with how Biden and Harris have handled the Israel, Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran, that whole conflict. They are not happy with that. There are, and it's especially true, like you have the main sect of Muslims in Michigan, especially in that Dearborn area, are Shia Muslims, and that's the same sect of Islam that Iran holds to. And so it might have there's some intricacies there that I don't fully understand, but it seems like they are not happy with that. And you've had some Muslim, I think the Muslim mayors in Michigan have come out and endorsed Trump. There are people that are not voting, like they've actually said, don't vote for Kamala Harris, vote for everything else, just leave her blank, don't vote for it all. So you might see in Michigan a huge just loss in turnout for Harris, even though so Trump might win just because so many people stay home, so Kamala Harris loses so many people. But as of right now, I kind of have to think Michigan goes blue. So this is kind of where I think we sit right now, is Trump winning the election, 287 to 251. That's where I think we're sitting right now. And to kind of back that up a little bit, I'll show you a couple of things that kind of back up why I think Trump is on pace to win the election right now. He's on pace to win the election right now. Not that one. He's on pace to win the election because of two things. Number one, right now, and this just happened today, this poll came out today, the Emerson poll, which pushed Trump over the edge. He is now leading in the national popular vote polls. So I don't think the last time I think Trump led right around the time Biden dropped out. He was ahead in the polls, but he hasn't led since. And Trump really, I don't think for the last 10 years, has never led except for that time right after the debate with Biden. So he's never been somebody where we thought he was going to win the popular vote, really. He has a chance of winning the popular vote. And if he wins the popular vote, it's a 99.9% assurance he's going to win. There's just it's not practically there's just no probable solution that he wins the popular vote but still loses the election. I just can't see that happening. I mean, I could be completely wrong on that, but that's like again, 1 in a million if that happens. So that's why I think he's going to win, is because even if he doesn't win the popular vote, he just has to be within 1 point and he wins the election. Another thing too is people are putting money on him, the betting odds. So And again, this is an average of the betting odds that I'm showing you right now. I'm not just using one where like Polymarket and stuff like that. Everyone goes to Polymarket because it's the most money put on the election. No, I'm going as a aggregate of all the main betting odds places, and they're all saying, by 20 points, 22 points, that Trump is going to win. And you can say like, oh, there's probably just a bunch of people that are rich and they put a whole bunch of money down on Trump and that's skewing things. Skewing it by 20 points. I mean, somebody putting, $100,000 on the Bengals to beat the Eagles on Sunday isn't going to make the odds that much better as far as a point spread for the Bengals. So not a 20 point spread, not anything like that. So it's people putting their money where their mouth is. There's polls that show Trump is leading in the national popular vote. He could win the national popular vote, and he is ahead in every swing state in polling aggregates. Just to me, the trend is going towards Trump. So we're still 10 days out. Something could happen, but that's how it sits right now. Right now, I am predicting. Right now, I think Trump is on pace to win this election, and it really wouldn't surprise me if they call this election really early in the night. And by really early, I mean once they call Texas. It wouldn't surprise me if once they get done calling all the plain states, you're going to see them go, yeah, it's pretty likely Trump's going to win, and they might have to wait for Arizona to come through, something like that. It would not surprise me, but we'll see how it goes. Again, we got 10 days. So the presidential election is, again, a big deal, but a real big deal that people don't think about, and it was actually a huge deal coming out of 2020, is the U.S. Senate. The Senate is going to be a big deal because of Supreme Court nominees and just judges in general, just any nominees. The party that's in control of the Senate can hold up nominations. So it makes things very difficult for presidents to, get the right people in the right places. Now, I want Clarence Thomas to be able to retire, which is why I'm voting for Trump. That's probably my main reason for voting for Trump, is that I trust Trump to nominate somebody to replace Clarence Thomas that is as close to Clarence Thomas as Clarence Thomas, if that makes sense, which I don't think it does. But I think you know what I mean. So the U.S. Senate is kind of a big deal. Now, I'm going to make this really quick. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but because the Senate map is also kind of the easiest to call right now because of what the polls say. And there's really only 3 spots that are really in doubt. It would surprise me if anything changes from here, but the Republicans are going to take the Senate, barring some catastrophe. So Republicans are going to take the Senate. They're going to have at least 51 seats. The thing is that based on some polls, I'm really thinking that the Republicans not just flip, because West Virginia is going to be a flip, Michigan's going to be a flip, or not Michigan, Montana is going to be a flip. I really think that Ohio, based on the polls and that trend and the fact that it's an election year, Trump is on the ballot, I think you're going to see a much better turnout for Ohio and people voting Republican. So I really think that Republicans are going to be able to flip the Senate seat in Ohio from blue to red. Like I was talking earlier, I don't know if, even though the trend is the right way, I don't know if Wisconsin, if Republicans are going to be able to flip that seat. Tammy Baldwin's been there for a while. She's an incumbent. And with it being that close, and see, Ohio's not really a swing state anymore. Wisconsin is like the swingiest of swing states right now. It's all the polls are legit tied, so I'm going to say that Tammy Baldwin probably ekes this one out. Again, this is another state that the election laws are favoring Democrats, and then the courts have been making sure that they favor Democrats. So I think that probably sticks. Pennsylvania isn't just a swing state for it is probably not going to decide the election. It is probably not only going to decide the election for president. That race has gotten really close with Dave McCormick and Bob Casey, and as of right now, I'm gonna say that Bob Casey, again, incumbent advantage, ekes one out, but it's gonna be really tight, and we'll see how that goes. But yeah, this is what I think the minimum. Well, the minimum is 51, so Republicans minimum 51. But I think if they don't get 52, I think we're gonna have new Senate leadership in the Senate after this anyway. Mitch McConnell is retiring. You're gonna see a new leader pop up. But if they don't get at least 52, the entire Senate leadership needs to be pushed out and fresh blood all the way through. I would honestly say that Rick Scott from Florida, he's gonna win in Florida. So I'd say put him in there as the leader. That's who I would say right now. And then probably like someone who's maybe the another part of Senate leadership, like the best one, Mike Lee or Ted Cruz, put them in the background, kind of going and talking to people. Somebody that people can look at and go, no, he's solid. He's not going to betray us. He's good. So someone like a Mike Lee, Ted Cruz, just anybody who's in current leadership needs to go. So that's my take on the Senate. Now, as of right now, the House is also up for grabs. Republicans did horribly underperformed in 2022. It was just absolutely disgusting. So I went through and I did this a few times before we started recording, and every single time I went through and did this, I got somewhere either 228 or 229. It was either 228 or 229 every time I did this map and kind of went through it. So I'm going to say right now, a minimum for Republicans as of right now is 225. If Republicans get less than 225, if they don't get 225 seats in the House, the entire House leadership needs to go. Gone. Not just the Speaker, everybody. Start over. Bring in new leadership and make it work. Because new Speaker, new Majority Leader, new everybody. They've got to go. Because if you can't get at least 225 in a scenario where everything's kind of trending your way, then no, all the leadership needs to go and gone. I said this in 2022. I had higher hopes for them, and I should have, they should have done that, done what I said, got rid of everybody, and they didn't. This time around, if they can't get at least 225 votes in the House, they need to go. I think 235 though is probably the ceiling. That's the most you can expect them to get, I think, is 235. So we'll see how it goes, but I think 225 to 235, that 10 seat range is kind of what I'm looking at in the House right now. I'll go over this a few more times over the next 10 days. Again, 10 days out, we'll see how it goes, but as of right now, this is how I see I'm showing around 228 to 229. 228 to 229 is kind of where I think it's going to be. So, to recap, presidential election, as of right now, 10 days out, I have Donald Trump winning the election with 287 Electoral College votes, possibly winning the popular vote. We'll see how the polls go over the next week and a half. In the Senate, I have the Republicans getting to 52 seats in the Senate, taking the majority. And in the House, I have Republicans keeping their majority and expanding that majority by about 10 seats, somewhere in the neighborhood of 229 seats in the House out of the 435 seats in the House. So that's where I'm seeing it right now, and that's where I think we are 10 days out. Now, again, a lot can change over the next 10 days. A lot has changed just in the last 10 days. So I imagine things could change over the next 10 days. We'll see how they go. You're going to see the betting markets tighten up. You're going to see a lot of polls kind of tighten up, and a lot can change. Some big deal could come out about Kamala Harris or Donald Trump or their running mates or just Republicans in general or Democrats in general, something like that could flip a lot of things on their head. I think we've had so much craziness over the last 4 months that I doubt anything could come out that would surprise us. I mean, someone would have to have gotten murdered for us to actually really be shocked by anything at this point. So that's what I'm thinking right now. If you like this information, please like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to all of my social media, filthyheathens.locals.com, my Filthy Heathens channel on Rumble, my YouTube video, Filthy Heathens on YouTube, and go to my X page at Heathen Kirk. That is where you will get kind of more unfiltered stuff from me. That's where I post. When I post on X, it's stuff usually, it's not usually too big a deal, but it's also where I know I won't get banned. So I'll, I hesitate less when I hit send on X than I do on Facebook or Instagram, things like that. So go check those out. And yeah, leave a comment below. Let me know what you guys think of my predictions so far. Remember, this is 10 days out, and we'll see how it goes from there. But you guys have a great next 10 days, and I'm hoping that that everything goes smoothly, and that we don't have to wait a week for the election results afterwards. You guys have a good one.